In a quiet Virginia suburb, Amira Hasan lives a modest life as a retired army officer, tending to her garden and sharing wisdom with her journalist niece, while carefully guarding secrets buried beneath 15 years of silence. When an unexpected incident at an elite shooting range draws the attention of powerful enemies, Amira's carefully constructed world begins to unravel, revealing skills that defy explanation and a past that was meant to stay hidden forever. As shadows from a classified mission resurface and a charismatic weapons manufacturer unveils technology designed to reshape modern warfare, Amira finds herself caught in a deadly game where the lines between hunter and prey blur, forcing her to become something she swore she'd left behind, a ghost that even the most powerful men in the world fear to whisper about. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free, and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Amira Hasan adjusted her hijab as she entered America's most exclusive shooting range, her weathered hands steady despite the whispers that followed. Behind designer tactical gear worth thousands, elite shooters nudged each other, smirking at the sight of this modest Muslim woman in her 60s carrying an antique leather case. When they handed her a sabotaged weapon, cameras raised to capture her failure, no one noticed how her eyes calculated with military precision. They couldn't know what classified files had buried 15 years ago, that this quiet woman had eliminated more high-value targets than any sniper in history before the government erased her existence. "Look at the grandma with her gun," someone muttered. But Amira heard it clearly, and after years of silence, it was finally time to show these people what happens when you mock a ghost. Chapter 1. The Ghost. Amira Hasan adjusted her hijab as she entered America's most exclusive shooting range, her weathered hands steady despite the whispers that followed. Behind designer tactical gear worth thousands, elite shooters nudged each other, smirking at the sight of this modest Muslim woman in her 60s carrying an antique leather case. When they handed her a sabotaged weapon, cameras raised to capture her failure, no one noticed how her eyes calculated with military precision. They couldn't know what classified files had buried 15 years ago, that this quiet woman had eliminated more high-value targets than any sniper in history before the government erased her existence. "Look at the grandma with her gun," someone muttered. But Amira heard it clearly, and after years of silence, it was finally time to show these people what happens when you mock a ghost. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Precision Elite, the most exclusive shooting range in Virginia. A modest, slightly faded blue Toyota Corolla pulled into the lot, looking out of place among the gleaming Porsches, Range Rovers, and Teslas. Behind the wheel, Amira Hasan took a deep breath and adjusted her navy blue hijab, ensuring it was perfectly in place. At 62, her face was lined with quiet wisdom, her hands steady despite the years. "Are you sure about this, Khala Amira?" asked Layla, her niece, a bright-eyed journalist in her late 20s with ambitious dreams and a fierce commitment to justice. "These people can be pretty brutal." Amira offered a gentle smile. "I'm just here to support your story, Habibti. Don't worry about me." As they approached the ultra-modern facility with its glass and steel architecture, heads turned. Conversation quieted momentarily before resuming with subtle glances their way. The air inside smelled of gun oil, leather, and expensive cologne. Display cases showcased custom weapons that cost more than Amira's house. Memberships here started at $50,000 annually, but Layla had secured visitor passes through her magazine connections. "Well, look what the wind blew in," boomed a voice from across the main lounge. Alex Reynolds, ex-Navy SEAL and current CEO of Apex Weapons Technologies, strode toward them. His tailored suit barely contained his muscular frame, and his smile didn't reach his ice-blue eyes. At 45, he was the golden boy of the military-industrial complex, with government contracts worth billions and a reputation for ruthlessness clothed in patriotism. "You must be the journalist," he said to Layla, dismissing Amira with barely a glance. "Unexpected +1." Layla straightened her shoulders. "My aunt is an enthusiast. I thought she might enjoy seeing your facility while I work on my piece about accessibility in elite hobby spaces." Reynolds' eyebrow arched. Enthusiast? Really? His gaze drifted to the weathered leather case Amira carried. What's in the antique, ma'am? Family heirloom? Before Amira could answer, a circle of onlookers had formed. Tech moguls, retired generals, Wall Street predators, the upper echelon of America's power structure, all waiting for entertainment. It's a Winchester Model 70, Amira said quietly. Made in 1952. A ripple of laughter spread through the group. Hey, Alex, called out a ruddy-faced man in expensive tactical gear. Think she knows which end the bullet comes out of? Reynolds' smile widened. Ma'am, we've got some pretty advanced systems here. Heat-sensitive moving targets, wind simulation, the works. Maybe you'd be more comfortable watching from the observation deck. Amira's expression remained neutral. I'd like to try if that's all right. Who gave Grandma a gun? Someone muttered, loud enough to be heard. Layla's face flushed with anger, but Amira placed a calming hand on her arm. The older woman simply nodded politely, her composed nature clearly unnerving Reynolds more than any retort would have. Your funeral, Reynolds shrugged. We're running a little contest today anyway. Let's head to the premium range. The group moved through security doors to a cavernous indoor range unlike anything most civilian shooters ever experienced. Digital displays showed distances adjustable up to 1,000 yards. Robotic arms moved targets in unpredictable patterns. Shooters wore augmented reality glasses displaying wind conditions and other environmental factors. One by one, the elite took their turns. A software billionaire hit 8 out of 10 targets at 200 yards with a $15,000 custom rifle. A hedge fund manager with a military background did slightly better. Reynolds himself stepped up with a prototype from his company, a semi-automated system that adjusted for wind and movement and hit 9 out of 10 at 300 yards. Not bad for an old man, he joked to appreciative laughter. Then he gestured toward Amira. Let's see what Grandma's got. You don't have to do this, Layla whispered. I know, Amira replied, already opening her case. The rifle she removed was beautiful in its simplicity. No electronics, no tactical accessories, just wood and metal worn smooth by decades of handling. The crowd's mockery grew louder as she methodically checked the weapon, loaded a single round, and stepped up to the firing position. We've got a betting pool going, Reynolds announced. 10 grand says she doesn't hit anything but the floor. Amira didn't respond. She simply looked downrange, raised the rifle to her shoulder, and became still. So still that the room grew quiet in spite of itself. Her breathing slowed visibly. 15 seconds passed. 20. The crowd began to shift uncomfortably, then a single shot. The crack echoed through the facility. On the digital display, a perfect bullseye at 400 yards. Before anyone could react, Amira loaded another round and fired again. Another perfect hit. Beginner's luck, someone muttered. Amira loaded a third round. This time she adjusted her aim slightly to the left of the target. Reynolds laughed. Correction coming. Guess the luck ran out. The shot rang out. The bullet struck a steel deflection peg at the edge of the range, ricocheted perfectly to hit a second peg, then a third, before striking a clay pigeon that had just been launched from a trap. Complete silence fell over the room. Amira calmly packed her rifle away. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but carried throughout the stunned space. Thank you for the opportunity. She walked toward the exit. Layla hurried after her, equally shocked. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? Layla asked when they reached the parking lot. Amira's eyes held something distant, something her niece had never seen before. It's been a while, she said simply. Let's go. Behind them, through the glass doors, Alex Reynolds watched with a face tight with something deeper than anger, a flicker of recognition and perhaps fear. The drive home was silent. Layla kept glancing at her aunt, seeing her with new eyes. The modest house Amira had lived in for the past 15 years revealed nothing unusual. Family photos, worn, comfortable furniture, a small garden visible through the kitchen window. Nothing to suggest the woman who had just left the country's most elite marksman speechless. I'll make some tea, Amira said, hanging her jacket on the hook by the door. Kala Amira, Layla started, setting her laptop bag down. What just happened back there? Amira filled the kettle, her movements efficient and precise. You wanted to show contrast for your story. I think you got it. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Layla sat at the kitchen table. Nobody shoots like that without training. Serious training. The older woman's hands paused briefly on the tea canister. For a moment, Layla thought she saw something, a flicker of memory, perhaps pain, cross her aunt's features. "Everyone has a past, Habibti," Amira finally said. "Some parts of mine are just quieter than others." And as the kettle began to whistle, Layla couldn't help but wonder just how quiet and how deadly those parts might be. Chapter 2: Shadows of the Past. Michigan, 1970. The summer heat pressed down like a blanket as 10-year-old Amira balanced on a wooden crate on the back porch of her grandfather's small farm. Omar Hassan, a wiry man with kind eyes and calloused hands, adjusted her stance. "That's it, little one. Now remember what I told you about breathing." Amira nodded seriously. "Breathe in halfway, breathe out halfway, then hold. Good girl." "And what about the wind?" "Watch the trees. If the leaves move, the bullet moves." Her grandfather chuckled. "Smart as a whip, just like your grandmother." He pointed to a row of cans set up along the fence. "Now take your time. A gun isn't about hurrying, it's about patience." Amira squinted down the barrel of the old .22 rifle, focusing on a rusted bean can 30 yards away. She breathed, held, and squeezed the trigger gently. The can flew backward with a satisfying ping. "I did it, Jaddy! I did it!" She jumped with excitement. "You sure did." He ruffled her hair, pride evident in his eyes. "But remember what I always say? A gun isn't a toy, it's a responsibility," Amira recited. "And you never pointed at anything." "You don't intend to destroy," she finished. Omar nodded solemnly. "That's right. The day may come when you need this skill to put food on the table or protect yourself. But I pray you never have to use it for anything but tin cans and paper targets." Back in the present, Amira poured hot water over tea bags, the steam rising between them like the years. "Jaddy taught me to shoot when I was 10, she offered. He was patient, methodical. Layla accepted the mug with a nod. "But what I saw today went way beyond backyard plinking, Kala, Amira. That was military-grade skill." Amira sipped her tea. "I served. You know that? You told us you were a supply officer. 20 years, retired as a master sergeant. That's what my discharge papers say." Something in her tone made Layla lean forward. "What aren't you telling me?" Instead of answering, Amira rose and walked to a small desk in the corner. From a drawer, she removed a yellowed newspaper clipping and handed it to her niece. "Local girl shocks county shooting competition. Amira Hasan, 17, outscores adult men to take first prize." The grainy photo showed a teenage Amira wearing a simple headscarf, holding a trophy, serious-faced despite the achievement. "That competition changed everything," Amira said quietly, returning to her seat. "A man approached me afterward. Crew cut, perfect posture. Said he was a recruiter. Said I had a gift that shouldn't be wasted." Michigan, 1977. The county fairgrounds swarmed with spectators and competitors for the annual shooting competition. 17-year-old Amira stood out, one of only 3 women competing and by far the youngest, and the only one wearing hijab. "You sure you're in the right place, girl?" asked a bearded man in a flannel shirt, eyeing her skeptically. Amira just nodded, adjusting her stance at the firing line. The course was challenging. Stationary targets at varying distances followed by moving targets. 20 shots total. When the final scores were tallied, the announcer seemed almost embarrassed. First place, Amira Hasan with a score of 98 out of 100. As she accepted the modest trophy, a tall man in civilian clothes approached. He introduced himself as Captain James Miller. "That was impressive shooting, especially from someone your age," he said, handing her a card. "The Army could use talents like yours. We have programs that could develop what you can do." Amira tucked the card away, not giving it much thought at the time. But 3 months later, with limited options in her small town and college financially out of reach, she called the number. "So you enlisted because of your shooting?" Layla set down her mug. "Partly," Amira acknowledged, "but also because I wanted more than what was available to a Muslim girl from Michigan in 1977. She fell silent then, lost in thought. Layla watched her aunt, the now professional journalist in her, sensing a much bigger story than she'd anticipated. "What happened after you enlisted?" Amira's expression grew distant. "Basic training, advanced training, then sniper school, though they didn't call it that for women back then." "Wait, sniper school? But women weren't allowed in combat roles then." "Officially," Amira agreed, "but unofficially, The military has always found ways to use talent when they need it, regardless of policy. Layla pulled out her notebook, journalist instincts fully engaged. I want to understand, Kala Amira. Would you mind if I look into your service record? A shadow crossed Amira's face. You won't find much, not in the official channels. Over the next week, Layla dug deep into military archives and databases, calling contacts and cashing in favors. What she found, or rather didn't find, was disturbing. Amira's records existed, but they were suspiciously thin. Entire years were summarized in single sentences. Commendations were mentioned, but details were redacted. Even her last known base assignment, listed as Camp Freeman, didn't appear on any official military installation lists. When Layla presented her findings to Amira, the older woman didn't seem surprised. They were thorough, she said simply. Had to be. Who's they? Layla pressed. What were you involved in, Kala Amira? Amira stared out the window for a long moment before answering. Have you ever heard of Black Crescent? Layla shook her head. Good. That means they did their job. Amira's voice took on a new edge. Black Crescent was a unit that didn't exist, composed of soldiers who didn't exist, doing things that never happened. A Black Ops unit? More than that, we were the ones too controversial to be acknowledged. Women, when women weren't supposed to be in combat. Muslims and people of color who were too visible for traditional special forces. People whose very existence would raise questions about military policy. Fort Benning, 1979. Amira stood at attention, the only woman wearing hijab and one of only 3 Muslims in the specialized training group. Despite outscoring many of her male counterparts, she was constantly passed over, relegated to support roles, her skills underutilized, until the day Colonel Raymond Jackson pulled her aside after qualification. Private Hasan, he said, his voice low, your file has come to my attention. Sir, she asked, uncertain. I'll be straight with you. The Army doesn't know what to do with someone like you. Some believe you'd be better suited to a desk. Amira's heart sank, but she maintained her composure. However, Jackson continued, others recognize talent shouldn't be wasted because of politics. I've been authorized to offer you an alternative path. Unofficial, challenging, potentially dangerous. But your abilities would be put to full use. What kind of path, sir? One that doesn't officially exist. You'd be deployed on missions that never happened. Your achievements would never be publicly recognized. He studied her face. Most people need acknowledgement, Hasan. Glory. Recognition. If that's what you're after, this isn't for you. Amira thought about her grandfather's words about responsibility and purpose. Will I be helping people, sir? Jackson nodded slowly. In ways few others can. Then I don't need the glory. Black Crescent, Amira explained to her astonished niece, operated globally but off every radar. Rescue missions, intelligence gathering, target elimination when conventional forces couldn't go in. Political complications, deniability requirements. They sent us... How many missions? Layla asked, scribbling notes. Classified. For how long? 15 years. Layla looked up. 15 years of missions that never happened. No recognition, no acknowledgement. That was the deal. Amira's voice hardened slightly. Until it wasn't. Before Layla could press further, her phone buzzed with an incoming email. The subject line read simply, about Amira Hasan. The body contained only a blurry photograph. A younger Amira, maybe 40, wearing desert camouflage and her hijab, holding a small child wrapped in a blanket. Behind her, flames and smoke rose from a building. Her rifle was slung across her back, and despite the chaos around her, her expression was completely calm. What is this? Layla whispered, turning the phone toward her aunt. Amira's face went still. Kandahar, 2004. Classified operation. Hostage rescue? She took a deep breath. Someone's breaking silence. That's concerning. Who would send this? And why now? I don't know. Amira took the phone, studying the image. But someone's trying to tell you something. Across town, in a penthouse office overlooking the city, Alex Reynolds reviewed surveillance footage from the shooting range incident frame by frame. He analyzed Amira's technique, her breathing pattern, her trigger discipline. Run it through recognition again, he ordered his security chief. Sir, we've already tried. Hasan Amira. Master Sergeant, U.S. Army, retired 2005. Supply logistics. Nothing unusual. Bullshit. Reynolds slammed his fist on the desk. Nobody in supply logistics shoots like that. Nobody but... He trailed off, eyes narrowing. Sir? Access my personal files. Operation Sandstorm 2005. Cross-reference with call sign Mirage. The security chief looked uncomfortable. Sir, those files are sealed by Pentagon directive. Even accessing them could… Just do it, Reynolds snapped, turning back to the screen, freezing on Amira's face at the moment of her impossible ricochet shot. I know who you are, he whispered to the image. I just can't prove it yet. That evening, as Amira prepared dinner, a plain envelope was slipped under her front door. No postmark, no return address. Inside was a single rifle cartridge, a specific kind used for long-range precision shooting. Beneath it lay a handwritten note. You're not the only one they erased. Amira held the bullet up to the light, examining it carefully. Her hands, which had remained perfectly steady at the shooting range, now trembled slightly. Who is it? Layla asked from the doorway, having seen the envelope's arrival. Someone from the past, Amira replied quietly. Someone who knows what's coming. What does that mean? What's coming? Amira tucked the bullet and note into her pocket. War, she said simply. Of a very specific kind. She turned toward the kitchen window, gazing out at the darkening sky. They've spent 20 years pretending I don't exist. Now, they're about to remember why they were afraid of me. Chapter 3. The Trap. Amira's unexpected display of skill at the precision elite range had spread through certain circles like wildfire. The whispers reached Alex Reynolds as he sat in his corner office overlooking the Virginia skyline. On his desk lay a dossier, frustratingly incomplete, about Amira Hasan. Sir, the event is confirmed for Saturday, his assistant said from the doorway. We've secured exclusive streaming rights through Battlesphere. Reynolds nodded without looking up. And our special guest? Miss Hasan? She received the invitation this morning. Her niece called to confirm attendance. A cold smile spread across Reynolds' face. Perfect. The invitation Amira received was printed on heavy cardstock with gold embossing. A Veterans Honor Shooting competition to benefit wounded warriors. It mentioned Amira specifically as a distinguished guest who would be recognized for her service. What it didn't mention was Alex Reynolds' true intentions. I don't like this, Layla said, examining the invitation at Amira's kitchen table. Why would he invite you after what happened? Amira sipped her coffee thoughtfully. Either to make amends or to set a trap. She set down her mug. Likely the second. Then why go? Because sometimes, Amira replied, you need to trigger the trap to expose the trapper. The morning of the event, Amira knelt on her prayer rug, performing Fajr prayer with the same focused precision she brought to everything. As the sun rose, painting her modest living room in gold, she completed her supplications and remained seated a moment longer, hands raised in personal dua. Allah protect us and guide our path, she whispered. And forgive me for what I must do. Rising, she moved to her closet and selected her clothing carefully. A deep burgundy hijab with a simple pin, loose black pants, and a long tunic in earth tones. Conservative, traditional, but allowing for movement if needed. As she dressed, her mind traveled back to another time, another preparation. Kabul, 2003. In a sparsely furnished safe house, Amira adjusted her camouflage hijab, ensuring it was secure but would allow for peripheral vision. Her hands moved automatically through the familiar process of equipment check. Primary weapon, secondary, communications, extraction plan. The team around her did the same, a quiet choreography they had perfected over years. 15 minutes, Mirage, came the voice of her spotter, a rugged man known only as Hawk. Copy that, she replied, her voice calm despite the adrenaline beginning to flow. She moved to the window, scanning the urban landscape spread before her. Somewhere out there was a high-value target. A bomb maker responsible for the deaths of dozens of civilians, including children at a local school. Intelligence had finally pinpointed his location, and Black Crescent had been deployed to eliminate the threat with minimal collateral damage. The kind of mission that didn't exist on paper but saved countless lives. You always get so quiet before, Hawk commented, joining her at the window. Like you're already a ghost. Amira didn't smile, didn't change her expression. A ghost is what I need to be tonight. The team's ready. You? She turned to him then, her dark eyes holding a certainty that had become familiar to those who worked with her. I was born ready. The memory faded as Layla knocked on her bedroom door. "Kala Amira, it's time to go if we want to avoid traffic." "Coming, Habibti." Amira looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The woman who stared back wasn't a ghost, not yet, but she could become one again if needed. The event was elaborate, hosted at Apex Technologies' private testing facility. Red, white, and blue bunting draped the entrance. Corporate sponsors had logos prominently displayed. A small crowd of influential people mingled, sipping champagne and discussing weapons with animated enthusiasm. When Amira arrived with Layla, cameras turned their way. Reynolds approached, all smiles and outstretched hand. "Miss Hasan, so glad you could make it." His voice carried for the benefit of nearby microphones. "We're honored to have a veteran of your experience join us today." Amira shook his hand, her expression neutral. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Reynolds. Please call me Alex." He gestured to a waiting assistant. "We have a special place for you in our program, but first we'd like to present you with this token of appreciation." The assistant came forward with a polished wooden box. Inside was a gleaming trophy with an engraved plate in recognition of service and participation. Cameras flashed. Amira accepted it with grace, though Layla noticed her aunt's subtle tensing at the wording, participation, not excellence or skill. "And now," Reynolds continued, "we'd be honored if you demonstrate your expertise for our guests and viewers at home." He gestured toward the shooting range. "We've prepared a special rifle for you." A technician approached with a sleek modern rifle, an Apex Precision X9, the company's flagship product. It looked impressive, but Amira's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly as she examined it. "This is too generous," she said carefully. "Nothing but the best for our veterans," Reynolds replied smoothly. "Please, the audience is waiting." The range was set up with cameras to capture every angle. A digital display showed the target at 500 yards. Challenging but not impossible for someone of Amira's skill. The crowd quieted as she took position. Layla watched from the sidelines, her journalist instincts flaring. Something felt wrong. The way the technician smirked, the expectant look in Reynolds' eyes. Amira raised the rifle, adjusting her stance. She took a breath, aimed, and fired. The shot went wide, missing the target entirely. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Amira frowned, adjusted, and fired again. Another miss, this one even farther off. Laughter, quiet at first, then louder, spread through the audience. Reynolds' smile widened. "Perhaps the modern equipment is different from what you're used to," he suggested, loud enough for everyone to hear. Amira examined the rifle more carefully, running her fingers along the barrel and checking the scope. To most observers, she looked confused, overwhelmed by the technology. But Layla caught the flash of recognition in her aunt's eyes. "Thank you for the opportunity," Amira said, echoing her words from their first encounter. But this time they were met with outright laughter. Reynolds stepped forward, taking the rifle. "Let me show you how it's done." He fired 3 quick shots, all perfect bullseyes. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. "Don't feel bad," he told Amira, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "These systems are designed for professionals." The humiliation was complete. Cameras captured every moment of Amira's apparent incompetence. As they left the event, Layla was fuming. "He set you up. That rifle was rigged, wasn't it?" Amira walked steadily toward the car. Barrel was off-center, scope was misaligned. "Yes, we should expose him." "I can write." "No," Amira cut her off. "Not yet." "But he publicly humiliated you." Already the video is trending online. "Grandma with a gun is going viral." Amira's expression remained calm. "Let them laugh. Arrogance makes people careless." "How can you be so composed?" Layla demanded as they reached the car. "Don't you care that millions of people are mocking you?" Amira finally turned to her niece, her eyes suddenly intense. "They don't understand that war is quieter than this." The statement hung in the air between them, laden with meaning Layla couldn't fully grasp. Back in his office, Reynolds replayed the footage, satisfaction evident on his face. His security chief stood nearby, watching with professional detachment. "Mission accomplished, sir. The video's getting traction. Her reputation is shot." Reynolds shook his head. "This was just step 1. If she's who I think she is, this won't stop her. It might not even slow her down." "And who do you think she is exactly?" Reynolds swiveled his chair, pulling up a classified file on his private server. "During my last deployment, there were rumors about a sniper, call sign Mirage. Never saw her face, never heard her voice, but she had a signature style. Could make shots no one else would attempt. His face hardened. The brass denied she existed, called her a combat myth. But I saw her work up close in Kandahar, 2005. You think this old woman is some mythical sniper? The security chief sounded skeptical. I think, Reynolds replied, she's the most lethal shot in modern military history. And if I'm right, exposing and eliminating her publicly will cement Apex's dominance in the AI weapons market. Eliminating? The security chief shifted uncomfortably. Sir, that sounds like business, Reynolds finished. Our new targeting system needs a dramatic debut. What better than defeating the legend no one could ever confirm? The ghost sniper finally revealed and outmatched by technology. He closed the file. Put a tail on her. I want to know every move she makes. That evening, Amira stood in her modestly sized backyard. 50 yards away, she had placed a coffee mug on a fence post. The night was quiet, only distant traffic occasionally breaking the silence. She raised her old Winchester, took a breath, and fired a single shot. The handle of the mug shattered precisely, leaving the body intact. Inside the house, Layla was on the phone with a contact, a retired colonel, Marcus Siddiqui, who had served as a liaison to Special Forces units. Colonel, I'm researching a story about unconventional units from the early 2000s. Does the name Black Crescent mean anything to you? A long silence followed. Where did you hear that name? Siddiqui finally asked, his voice cautious. I'm looking into the military background of a woman named Amira Hasan. Stop! Siddiqui interrupted. Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow, the coffee shop on Willow Street. 10 a.m. He paused. And Miss Nazari, if Hasan is who I think she is, be careful who you share this with, especially if Alex Reynolds is involved. How did you know about Reynolds? Because he's been looking for her for years. The line went dead. Layla turned to find Amira standing in the doorway, rifle in hand. Colonel Siddiqui? Amira asked. You heard? I did. Amira set the rifle down carefully. He was one of the few who knew the truth about Black Crescent. If he's talking, things are worse than I thought. What do you mean? The protocols were absolute. No acknowledgement, ever. If Siddiqui is willing to meet, he believes the danger of silence now outweighs the danger of speaking. She moved to the window, scanning the street outside. We're being watched, Layla joined her. I don't see anyone. Dark sedan, 2 blocks down. Been there since we got home. Amira stepped away from the window. Pack a bag, essentials only. We're leaving in an hour. Where are we going? Somewhere I should have returned to a long time ago. The next morning, in a quiet corner of the coffee shop, Colonel Siddiqui sat ramrod straight despite his 70 years. His silver hair was cut military short, his eyes constantly scanning the room. Thank you for meeting me, Layla began. I'm not here for you, Siddiqui replied bluntly. I'm here because if Amira Hasan is back on the radar, people need to be warned. Warned about what? She's my aunt, a retired army... Your aunt, Siddiqui interrupted, is the most dangerous person I ever worked with. And I ran ops with Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. He leaned forward. If she's connected to this Apex mess, tell Alex Reynolds one thing from me. If she's Mirage, she's more dangerous than anyone he ever faced. Who is Mirage? Layla pressed. Siddiqui's expression darkened. A ghost. 32 confirmed long-range eliminations. Probably twice that unconfirmed. Could hit targets other snipers claimed were impossible. He took a sip of coffee. After Kandahar, the higher-ups wanted her buried. Too many questions about having a Muslim woman in combat. Too many questions about civilian casualties that weren't her fault. What happened in Kandahar? Classified. But I'll tell you this, Alex Reynolds was there. His intel was compromised. People died who shouldn't have. Mirage saved who she could. Layla leaned back, processing. And you think my aunt is this Mirage? Siddiqui stood, leaving his coffee half-finished. I don't think anything. Officially, no one named Mirage ever existed. Black Crescent never existed. He buttoned his coat. But if she is who I suspect, and if Reynolds is coming after her... He paused, eyes darkening. God help him. Unbeknownst to either of them, a bearded man in worn jeans and a leather jacket sat at a nearby table, seemingly absorbed in a newspaper. His weathered face was partially hidden by sunglasses, but his attention was focused entirely on their conversation. When Siddiqui left, the man folded his paper and followed at a distance. Outside, he paused to watch the colonel drive away, then pulled out a burner phone. "She's surfaced," he said quietly. "And Reynolds is hunting her." The voice on the other end was gruff. "You sure it's her? Mirage, it's her." "I'd know that description anywhere." The man glanced back at the coffee shop where Layla remained. "What's the play, Falcon? Protect and observe. I'll be in touch." Across town, Amira was packing her modest SUV when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Watch the announcement at noon. Things are accelerating. K." At noon precisely, Apex Technologies released a promotional video on all major networks and streaming platforms. Alex Reynolds, looking polished and presidential, stood before a cutting-edge weapons display. "Today we unveil the future of precision targeting, the Amira 7 AI combat system. This revolutionary technology can outperform any human sniper, eliminating human error and emotion from the battlefield." The camera panned to a sleek drone-like device mounted with an advanced rifle system. "To demonstrate Amira 7's capabilities, we're issuing a challenge to any military or civilian marksman. Next week, at our Virginia Proving Grounds, Amira 7 will compete against human snipers in the most rigorous test of precision ever devised." His smile turned predatory as he added, "We're especially hoping to attract veterans with exceptional skills who may have been overlooked by traditional recognition systems." The message couldn't have been clearer. It was a public challenge to Amira, to Mirage. Amira watched the announcement on her phone, her expression unreadable. When it finished, she deleted the text and continued loading the car. "We're still leaving?" Layla asked, joining her with a small suitcase. "More important now than ever." As they pulled away from the house, Amira drove with purpose, heading west toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. From a distance, the dark sedan that had been watching the house began to follow. After an hour of driving, Amira suddenly accelerated, took a series of quick turns through a small town, then doubled back on a Forest Service road. The maneuver was executed with such precision that their tail lost them within minutes. "How did you—" Layla began, then shook her head. "Never mind. Are you going to tell me where we're going now?" "Somewhere I hope still exists," Amira replied, turning onto an unmarked dirt road that wound deep into the Appalachian wilderness. The cabin appeared suddenly, a simple structure built of logs and stone, nearly invisible among the trees. It looked weathered but solid, with a small covered porch and narrow windows positioned for optimal visibility of the surroundings. "What is this place?" Layla asked as they parked. "Safe house?" "Black Crescent maintains several across the country," Amira replied, retrieving a key from beneath a specific stone in the pathway. "Haven't been here in 15 years. Let's hope the protocols were maintained." Inside, the cabin was sparse but functional. A layer of dust covered everything, but otherwise it appeared untouched. Amira went directly to a bookshelf and removed a specific volume, The Art of War. Behind it was a small keypad. She entered a code, and a section of the floor slid open, revealing a ladder down to a hidden bunker. "Come on," she said, descending into the darkness. The bunker was climate-controlled and surprisingly well-preserved. One wall held weapons in locked cases. Another displayed maps and photographs. Filing cabinets lined a third wall, while a communication station occupied the fourth. Layla stared in disbelief. "This has been here all this time." Black Crescent operated independently. "We needed resources they couldn't deny providing." Amira opened a cabinet and removed a folder labeled Personnel Classified. Inside were photographs and dossiers of about a dozen individuals. She spread them on a table. "My team," she said softly. "The ones they erased." Layla examined the photos. Men and women of various ethnicities, all with the same intense focus in their eyes that she'd begun to recognize in her aunt. "What happened to them?" "Some died in the field. Some disappeared into civilian life." Amira's voice hardened. "Others were eliminated when they became inconvenient." She pointed to one photo, a younger man with sharp features and intense eyes. "Khalid Mahmood, call sign Falcon, best spotter I ever worked with, officially killed in action in 2006. Her finger moved to another photo. "Sofia Rodriguez, Cypher, communications expert, training accident in 2007. Another photo. "James Wilson, Shadow, Infiltration specialist. Suicide in 2008. You don't believe the official stories? I know they're lies. Amira opened another folder, this one labeled Kandahar, 2005. This file contained mission briefings, target information, and after-action reports, all heavily redacted. But one name appeared repeatedly in the margins: Alex Reynolds. "This is where it all fell apart," Amira said, her voice distant now, lost in memory. "What happened in Kandahar?" Layla asked, the journalist in her desperate to understand. Amira looked up, her eyes reflecting the dim light of the bunker. The beginning of the end, and now it seems the beginning of something new. She moved to one of the weapon cases, unlocking it with a key she wore around her neck. Inside was a disassembled sniper rifle, far more advanced than the Winchester she'd used at the range. "Reynolds thinks he knows who I am," she said, her hands moving automatically to assemble the weapon. "He's wrong. He knows what I was. He has no idea what I've become." Layla watched her aunt transform before her eyes, the gentle, quiet woman becoming something else entirely. Something far more dangerous. "What are you planning to do?" Amira sighted down the assembled rifle, checking its balance. "First we prepare, then we wait." "For what?" "For Reynolds to make his next move." She placed the rifle carefully on the table. "He wants Mirage? He'll get her, but not the way he expects." Layla felt a chill run down her spine. "Kala, Amira, you're scaring me a little." Amira's expression softened momentarily. "I'm sorry, Habibti. You've been dragged into something that started long before you, but I need you to trust me now." "Always," Layla said without hesitation. "But I need to understand. What really happened in Kandahar?" Amira sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of her 62 years. "A massacre that should never have happened, and a betrayal I should have seen coming." She looked up at her niece, decision visible in her eyes. "I'm going to tell you everything, and then you'll understand why Reynolds must be stopped, and why I'm the only one who can do it." As evening fell over the mountains, Amira began her story, her voice low and steady, like a river that has flowed too long underground and finally found its way to the surface. Kandahar, 2005. It was supposed to be a simple extraction. Chapter 4, Kandahar.
Enjoying our stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content. Now let's get back to our story.
Chapter 4, Kandahar. Kandahar, 2005, Amira began, her voice steady but distant. Operation Sandstorm. Our mission was to extract a high-value intelligence asset, an Afghan informant codenamed Falcon's Eye, who had been providing critical information about Taliban movements for 3 years. She moved to a small tactical map on the bunker wall, her fingers tracing the terrain with practiced familiarity. Falcon's Eye had information about a planned coordinated attack on multiple coalition bases. The intel was time-sensitive. We had a 48-hour window to get him and his family out before their cover would be blown. The bunker's dim lighting cast shadows across Amira's face, accentuating the lines etched by time and memory. I was the primary sniper, positioned here. She tapped a ridgeline overlooking a small village. Khalid, my spotter, was with me. We had a 3-person extraction team waiting for our signal: Shadow for infiltration, Cypher for communications, and our medic, Maya. Layla sat transfixed, watching her aunt transform as she recounted the mission, her posture straightening, her gestures becoming more precise, more military. Reynolds was the intelligence officer who briefed us. He'd been working with Falcon's Eye for months, building the relationship, verifying the intel. He provided the target location, a small compound on the outskirts of a village. Simple in, simple out. At least that's what we were told. Amira's voice hardened. We should have questioned it more. The intel felt too clean, too perfect. But Reynolds had a sterling reputation then. Rising star, decorated officer. No reason to doubt him. She paused, looking directly at Layla. The first sign something was wrong was when we arrived at the observation point. The village wasn't matching the satellite imagery we'd been shown. Streets were different, buildings not where they should be. Old data? Layla suggested. Amira shook her head. That's what Reynolds claimed when Khalid radioed the discrepancy. He assured us the target location was accurate. Just proceed as planned. Her eyes grew distant, seeing not the bunker walls but the Afghan landscape of 18 years ago. Night fell. The extraction team moved in while Khalid and I provided overwatch. I remember how quiet it was. Just the wind and Khalid's breathing as he tracked the team's movement through his scope. She fell silent for a moment, then continued, her voice lower. They reached the compound without incident. Shadow went in first. That's when everything went to hell. Amira closed her eyes briefly. The flash came first, bright enough to blind even through my night vision scope. Then the sound, a massive explosion that shook the ridgeline where we were positioned. The entire compound erupted in flames. An ambush, Layla whispered. Worse? The compound wasn't housing Falcon's Eye. It was packed with explosives rigged to detonate when breached. And it wasn't isolated as we'd been told. It was in the center of a civilian neighborhood. Amira's hands trembled slightly as she continued. Shadow was killed instantly. The blast took out 3 surrounding homes. Civilians, women, children started pouring into the streets, panicking. And then the shooting started. She moved back to the table, her movements stiff now, as if the memories themselves caused physical pain. Not our team shooting. We were too stunned to react. No, it came from multiple positions surrounding the compound. A deliberate crossfire, catching civilians and our team in the middle. Amira's voice became clinical, detached. The only way she could continue the story. Maya, our medic, was hit trying to reach a wounded child. Cypher managed to take cover in a partially collapsed building, but she was pinned down. Khalid and I had to make split-second decisions. She looked at Layla, her eyes suddenly fierce. I did what I was trained to do. I started eliminating threats. One by one, I located the shooters and took them out. 12 confirmed in under 3 minutes. The pride in her voice was unmistakable. Not for the kills themselves, but for the skill, the precision under unimaginable pressure. But it wasn't enough. As I was engaging, Khalid spotted movement on a rooftop half a kilometer away. A heavy machine gun being set up, aimed directly at the area where civilians were trying to escape. Amira walked to her rifle, running her fingers along the barrel as she spoke. It was an impossible shot. Wrong angle, too much distance, unpredictable wind conditions. But there was no other option. I remember Khalid saying, "Mirage, it's not doable." And I remember answering, "Watch me." For the first time since beginning her story, a ghost of a smile touched Amira's lips. I took the shot. 1,600 meters, 45-degree offset, accounting for a variable crosswind. The bullet traveled in an arc that defied conventional ballistics, ricocheted off a metal water tank, and struck the gunner before he could open fire on the civilians. That's... Layla shook her head in disbelief. Impossible, Amira finished. That's what the after-action reviewers said. No human sniper could make that shot. So they classified it, buried it. But those who were there knew. Word spread through certain circles about the ghost sniper, Mirage, who could bend bullets around corners. Her expression darkened again. While I was making that shot, Khalid had kept scanning and spotted something else. A figure directing the ambush from a vehicle at the edge of the village. Someone who didn't belong there. Someone in Western clothing. Layla's eyes widened. Reynolds? I didn't believe it at first. I shifted my scope to verify. It was him, talking on a satellite phone, coordinating the attack on his own extraction team. Amira began pacing the small bunker, the memory clearly agitating her. By then, Reynolds spotted us too. He knew we'd seen him. He fled, but not before ordering his hired guns to target our position. We had to move quickly, abandon our gear. Khalid was hit in the leg as we retreated. She stopped pacing and faced Layla directly. We made it to the emergency extraction point with Cypher, the only other survivor. I insisted on reporting Reynolds' betrayal immediately, but when we reached base, we found him already there, telling quite a different story. What did he say? That the mission had been compromised by a leak from within Black Crescent, that the Taliban had been tipped off, that I'd acted recklessly, taking unauthorized shots that endangered civilians. Amira's voice was tight with controlled anger. It was his word against ours, and he had powerful backers in military intelligence. They wanted the whole incident buried to avoid an international incident. Too many civilian casualties, too many questions about why we were operating there in the first place. She sat down heavily at the table. They separated us for debriefing. When I finally got out, Khalid and Cypher had been transferred to different units. Our commanding officer, Colonel Jackson, the only one who might have believed us, was suddenly reassigned to Pentagon duty. Layla was scribbling notes frantically. But why? Why would Reynolds betray his own team? What was he after? Amira's expression was grim. We didn't know then. It took years to piece it together. Reynolds wasn't after Falcon's Eye. That informant never existed. He was after something else. She opened another file folder, this one unmarked. Inside was a single photograph, a cave entrance partially obscured by rubble. This was near the village. Reynolds had intel about something hidden there during the Soviet era, something valuable enough to sacrifice an elite team and innocent civilians. What was it? We never confirmed exactly. Weapons, gold, opium, rumors varied. Whatever it was, he couldn't access it officially without questions being asked, permissions being granted, oversight being established. Amira carefully returned the photo to its folder. What we do know is that 3 months after Kandahar, Reynolds resigned his commission. 6 months later, he founded Apex Technologies with startup capital that a major investigation couldn't trace. Within 2 years, he had military contracts worth billions. And nobody questioned this? Layla asked incredulously. Some did. They tended to have unfortunate accidents or sudden career changes. Amira's voice was flat. Over the next few years, Black Crescent was systematically dismantled. Team members reassigned, records classified or destroyed. Our missions never happened. We never existed. She looked down at her hands, strong, capable hands that had once changed the course of wars from a distance. I was given a choice. Accept a medical discharge with full benefits and a cover story as a supply officer, or face a court-martial for alleged violations of rules of engagement in Kandahar. That's not a choice. That's blackmail, Layla said angrily. Yes, but I took the deal because I needed to survive, to wait, to remember. Amira's eyes met Layla's. Someone had to carry the truth, even if no one would believe it. Layla was quiet for a moment, absorbing everything. And the others from your team? What happened to them? Khalid disappeared after his official death in 2006. I tried to find him but couldn't. Cypher, Sophia, died in a suspicious helicopter crash in 2007. Shadow was already gone in the initial explosion. Maya, our medic, took the same deal I did. Retired to Minnesota, kept her head down. Amira rose and moved to a communications console, running her fingers over the dusty equipment. For years, I lived quietly, watched and waited. Reynolds built his empire on blood money, becoming untouchable. I thought perhaps justice would never come. She turned to face her niece, her expression resolute. Then you brought me to that shooting range. Pure coincidence, or perhaps Allah's plan. Reynolds recognized me just as I recognized him, and now he's drawn me out deliberately with this AI challenge. But why? Layla asked. After all this time, why risk exposing himself by confronting you? Because of what happened after Kandahar. Amira returned to the weapons case, removing a small, weathered journal. When they debriefed us, they took our mission logs, but I kept a personal record. Hidden. Encrypted. She opened the journal to reveal pages of text in what appeared to be a mixture of Arabic and English, written in a tight, precise script. There was something else I saw that day, something I didn't report because I couldn't explain it at the time. During the chaos, as I was tracking targets, my scope passed over a small boy. Couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. He was clutching a stuffed animal, frozen in terror as bullets flew around him. Amira's voice softened. I remember thinking I needed to find a way to get him to safety, but there was no clear path. Then I saw a figure dart out from cover, a woman in civilian clothes but moving with military precision. She grabbed the boy and pulled him behind a wall, just as bullets shattered the ground where he'd stood. She paused, the memory vivid. Something about her movement caught my attention. I shifted my scope to follow, and for just a moment our eyes met across the distance. Wait, Layla interjected. She saw you. From that distance? Not just saw me, recognized me. She knew exactly where I was positioned. And I recognized her too, though I'd never seen her before. Amira closed the journal. I logged her description in my personal notes but told no one. It seemed impossible. Who was she? A ghost. Like me. Amira's expression was unreadable. 2 weeks after Kandahar, I received an unmarked envelope with a bullet inside, exactly like the one that came to my door recently. No message then, just a replica of the exact ammunition I'd used for that impossible ricochet shot. She met Layla's questioning gaze. It was confirmation. Someone else knew what had happened. Someone was watching. Someone who understood what Reynolds had done. Amira returned to the table, spreading out the team photos again. For 15 years, I've wondered about that woman, about that bullet. I believed I was alone in carrying this truth. Now I know differently. She picked up the bullet that had been delivered to her house. This message means someone else is still out there. Someone who knows what Reynolds is planning. Layla leaned forward. And what is he planning? The Aura 7 system isn't just a weapons platform, it's an alibi. Amira's voice was cold now, analytical. Reynolds is using this public challenge to cover something bigger. The promotional materials mention eliminating human error and emotion from the battlefield. But what they really mean is eliminating witnesses and accountability. She traced a finger along the edge of the table. An AI system can't testify about war crimes. It can't have a crisis of conscience. It can't refuse an illegal order. You think he's creating a perfect tool for Black Ops work? Layla said slowly. Like what he tried to use Black Crescent for? Exactly. But this time, there won't be any human operators to question orders or report atrocities. Amira's expression hardened. And he's using me, Mirage, as the marketing opportunity. Defeat the legendary Ghost Sniper with technology, prove the human element is obsolete. So what's our next move? Layla asked. Before Amira could answer, a small red light began blinking on the communications console. She moved quickly to the equipment, powering up systems that had lain dormant for over a decade. Someone's accessing the outer security perimeter, she said, fingers flying over keyboards and switches. A dusty monitor flickered to life, showing thermal images of the forest surrounding the cabin. How is this still working after 15 years? Layla asked, amazed. Black Crescent built things to last, Amira replied, not taking her eyes from the screen. Autonomous power systems, satellite uplinks designed to activate only when accessed with the correct codes. The thermal image sharpened, revealing a single figure moving carefully through the trees, staying low, using cover, moving like a soldier. Is it Reynolds' people? Layla asked, a note of fear in her voice. Amira studied the movement pattern, her expression changing from alarm to something else. Recognition, perhaps even hope. No, she said quietly. Reynolds' people don't move like that. Only one person I've ever known had that particular approach pattern. She straightened, a new energy in her movements. Wait here, she ordered, moving toward the ladder. Kala Amira, who is it? Layla called after her. Amira paused, looking back over her shoulder. If I'm right, it's Falcon, my spotter. The best partner I ever had. She started up the ladder, but stopped again. And if I'm wrong, if it's a trap? She patted the sidearm strapped to her hip. Well, that's why we came to a place I know better than anyone alive. As Amira disappeared up the ladder, Layla turned back to the monitor, watching the unknown figure draw closer to the cabin. The ghostly thermal image moved with purpose, with confidence, someone who knew exactly where they were going. Someone who, like Amira, had been waiting a very long time for this moment. Through the small basement window, Layla could see the fading daylight turning the forest to shades of gold and shadow. A perfect time for ghosts to emerge from hiding. The perfect time for old secrets to finally come to light. And somewhere in Virginia, Alex Reynolds was preparing the trap that would bring it all to a head. But what Reynolds didn't understand, what he couldn't understand, was that Mirage had never been merely a sniper. She had been the trap all along. Chapter 5. Ghosts Reunited. Amira emerged from the cabin into the fading light, her movements fluid and silent. The forest was quiet around her, birds having settled for the evening, a light breeze rustling the leaves. To an untrained observer, the woods would have appeared empty, peaceful. But Amira knew better. She stood motionless on the porch, scanning the tree line with eyes that had been trained to detect the slightest anomaly. Her hand rested near, but not on her sidearm. You still favor your left side when you approach from elevation, she called out, her voice carrying just far enough. Some habits never change, Falcon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a shadow separated itself from the darkening forest, materializing into the figure of a man. He moved with the same precision she remembered, efficient, economical, no wasted motion. He stopped at the edge of the small clearing, just beyond easy striking distance. "And you still stand with your weight on your right foot when you're prepared to draw," the man replied, his voice a familiar rough baritone. "Some lessons stay with you." They regarded each other across 20 feet of open ground, two predators assessing, remembering, calculating. The man was in his late 50s, though he moved like someone younger. His beard was shot through with gray, his face weathered by sun and time. But his eyes, dark, alert, intelligent, were exactly as Amira remembered them. "Khalid," she said simply. "Amira," he replied with a slight nod. "They told me you were dead." A bitter smile crossed his face. "They told everyone that. Convenient way to silence someone. How did you find me?" "I never lost you." He shifted his stance slightly. 15 years I've kept watch from a distance, making sure they kept their end of the bargain, making sure you were safe." Amira studied him, looking for deception, for the changes 15 years might have wrought. But all she saw was the partner who had been her eyes and ears, her shield and her conscience through dozens of missions. "You could have made contact," she said, unable to keep a slight edge from her voice. "Not without putting you at risk. Reynolds has had people watching you on and off for years." Khalid took a tentative step forward. "I couldn't be sure which channels were compromised. And now? Now Reynolds has forced the issue. The Aura 7 challenge changed everything. Another careful step. He's drawing you out deliberately. I couldn't let you face that alone." Amira's posture relaxed slightly, the tension in her shoulders easing. "You've been following my niece." It wasn't a question, but Khalid nodded. "Since she met with Siddiqui. The Colonel's being watched too. Reynolds' people are everywhere." "Come inside," Amira said finally, gesturing toward the cabin door. "It seems we have much to discuss." They moved into the cabin and down to the bunker where Layla waited, anxiety clear on her face. "Layla, this is Khalid Mahmoud," Amira introduced them. "My former spotter and the only person I've ever trusted completely with my life." "Former?" Khalid raised an eyebrow, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. Layla looked between them, journalist curiosity warring with caution. "You're supposed to be dead." "A common condition among our old team," Khalid replied dryly. "Though in my case, greatly exaggerated." Amira moved to the small kitchenette in the corner of the bunker, putting water on to boil. Such a mundane domestic act seemed strangely out of place in this underground fortress filled with weapons and tactical maps. Yet it was precisely this blend of the ordinary and the extraordinary that had defined their lives for so long. "You said Reynolds has forced the issue," she said, measuring tea into a pot. "What do you know about his plans?" Khalid settled at the table, moving with a slight stiffness that suggested old injuries. "The Aura 7 system is real and it's dangerous. But it's not just a weapons platform, it's a key component in something much larger." He accepted the cup of tea Amira offered him, their fingers brushing momentarily in the exchange. A fleeting touch, yet laden with memories of countless similar moments in safe houses and forward operating bases across the world. "Reynolds has been building an empire not just of weapons, but of private military contractors," Khalid continued. "Apex isn't just supplying equipment to governments. They're supplying entire operation packages, hardware, personnel, intelligence. They're becoming a shadow military, answerable to no one." "We knew he was ambitious," Amira said, "but this goes beyond ambition. It's about control." Khalid's voice hardened. "Reynolds has been cultivating relationships with regimes and organizations that official U.S. forces can't touch. He's positioning Apex to be the go-to solution when governments need something done but can't be seen doing it themselves." "And Aura 7 is the centerpiece," Layla interjected, following the logic. "A weapons system with no human operator to question orders or become a whistleblower." "Exactly," Khalid nodded approvingly at her insight. "But there's a problem. For all its advanced technology, Aura 7 still can't match the adaptability and judgment of an expert human sniper in complex environments. That's where you come in, Mirage." Amira cradled her tea, warming her hands around the cup. "He wants to prove his system can outperform me. The legendary ghost sniper revealed and defeated by technology." "It's more than that," Khalid said. "He needs to eliminate you, physically and symbolically. You're the living proof of his betrayal in Kandahar. As long as you exist, his narrative isn't secure. And the challenge is the perfect cover," Layla added. If something happens to you during the competition, it'll look like an accident." Amira's expression remained impassive, but her eyes held a cold determination. "Let him try." "You're not seriously considering accepting this challenge?" Layla asked incredulously. "That's exactly what I'm considering." Amira set down her cup with deliberate care. "But not on his terms. On mine." Khalid leaned forward, his expression intent. "You have a plan. The beginnings of one." Amira rose and moved to the weapons locker, retrieving a black case. What Reynolds doesn't understand is that Mirage was never just about making impossible shots. She opened the case to reveal a set of custom tools and electronic components. It was about making people see what I wanted them to see, about being where no one expected me to be. "You're going to create an illusion," Khalid said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The biggest one of my career." Amira's lips curved in a smile that held no warmth. "But I'll need help. I'll need my spotter." "Always," Khalid replied without hesitation. Layla looked between them, sensing the years of trust and shared experience flowing beneath the surface of their simple exchange. "What about me?" she asked. "How can I help?" Amira turned to her niece, her expression softening slightly. "You're already helping in the most important way possible. You're our connection to the world Reynolds inhabits now, the world of media, of public perception. And for this plan to work, we need to control the story. You want me to leverage my journalism contacts? I want you to be the journalist you are," Amira said. Eyes open, skeptical of official narratives, ready to reveal the truth when the moment comes. Khalid nodded agreement. Reynolds has spent years building his public image, his company's reputation. The right story at the right time could bring it all crashing down. "But we'll need evidence," Layla pointed out. "Concrete proof of what happened in Kandahar, of his current operations." "That's where this comes in," Khalid said, reaching into his jacket to remove a small, weathered USB drive. "I didn't spend 15 years in the shadows just watching. I've been gathering information, building a case. Communications, banking records, satellite imagery, pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, tell a very different story than the one Reynolds has been selling." Amira eyed the drive. "Is it enough?" "Almost," Khalid replied. "There's one piece still missing, the direct connection between Kandahar and Reynolds' initial funding for Apex. If we had that, the whole house of cards would collapse." "And where do we find this missing piece?" Layla asked. "At the Aura 7 demonstration," Amira said with quiet confidence. "Reynolds keeps his most sensitive files in a secure server at Apex headquarters. During the demonstration, security will be focused on the event itself, the perfect opportunity for someone to access those servers." "You're talking about breaking into the headquarters of one of the most advanced weapons manufacturers in the country," Layla said, disbelief in her voice. "Not breaking in," Khalid corrected. "Walking in, with the right credentials." He pulled a tablet from his backpack and brought up schematics of the Apex Technologies campus. "The demonstration will be held here." He pointed to an outdoor range adjacent to the main building. "All eyes will be on the competition. Reynolds, his security team, the press, the military observers." "Meanwhile," Amira continued, "someone with the right access badge could enter the main building, access the secure server room, and extract the data we need." "And who has that kind of access?" Layla asked. "Doctor." "Sarah Chen," Khalid replied, bringing up a personnel file. "Chief Systems Engineer for Aura 7, one of the few people with unrestricted access to all areas of the facility, including the secure servers." "And how exactly do you plan to get her credentials?" Layla pressed. Amira and Khalid exchanged a look, a silent communication honed over years of working together. "We don't need her credentials," Amira said. "We need her cooperation." "You think she'll just help you sabotage her own project?" "Doctor, Chen has her own reasons to question Reynolds' methods," Khalid explained. 3 months ago, she filed internal ethics complaints about military applications of Aura 7 that went beyond the parameters she had agreed to. Those complaints mysteriously disappeared from the company's records. He brought up another document, an email from Dr. Chen to a colleague, expressing concerns about unauthorized modifications to the targeting algorithms that seemed designed to obscure accountability for targeting decisions. "She's been looking for a way out," Khalid continued. "But Reynolds has made sure she knows what happens to whistleblowers who cross him. So we offer her protection in exchange for access," Layla said, beginning to understand. "And a platform to share her concerns with the world," Amira added, looking meaningfully at her niece. "A journalist she can trust to tell the story accurately." Layla nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. "But that still leaves one major problem: the competition itself. Reynolds designed this challenge specifically to defeat you, Kala Amira. The Aura 7 system has been programmed with all the latest ballistic calculations, environmental compensation, predictive targeting." "All true," Amira interrupted calmly. "If I were to compete against it as a conventional sniper, I would lose." "But you're not a conventional sniper," Khalid said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I've never fought fair when lives were at stake," Amira agreed. "Why would I start now?" She moved to a large case she'd brought from home and opened it to reveal not her old Winchester, but components of a more advanced system, a modular sniper platform with custom modifications. "Reynolds expects me to be predictable, to play by his rules," she said, beginning to assemble the weapon with practiced hands. "He spent years analyzing what little data exists about Mirage's techniques. But what he doesn't understand is that my greatest strength was never the shot itself. It was making the impossible possible through means no one expected." Khalid smiled for the first time since arriving, a genuine expression that transformed his weathered face. "This is why we made such a good team. You'd find the third option when everyone else saw only two." "And what's the third option here?" Layla asked, leaning forward. "We let Reynolds believe he's won," Amira said, while actually exposing him for what he truly is. She finished assembling the rifle, a sleek, deadly instrument that seemed an extension of herself. "For this to work, we'll need perfect coordination. Khalid, you'll need to re-establish contact with any surviving members of Black Crescent who might be willing to help." "Already done," he replied. "Maya, our former medic, is ready. She's been waiting for this call for 15 years. And I've located 2 others who are on the periphery of our unit. They're standing by. We'll need secure communications, fallback positions, contingency plans." Amira was fully in mission planning mode now, the years falling away as she outlined their approach. "What about me?" Layla asked. "What's my role besides making contact with Dr. Chen?" Amira turned to her niece, her expression serious. "You'll be our public face, our voice. When everything happens, you need to be ready to break the story immediately, before Reynolds can control the narrative." She gripped Layla's shoulders gently. "This is dangerous, Habibti. Once we start this, there's no going back. Reynolds won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens him. Are you absolutely certain you want to be involved?" Layla met her aunt's gaze without flinching. "I became a journalist to uncover truth, to hold power accountable. This is exactly why I do what I do." Amira nodded, pride evident in her eyes. "Then let's begin." For the next 3 days, the bunker became a hive of activity. Khalid established secure communications with their other allies. Amira worked on modifying her equipment, preparing for contingencies, training her body back to the peak precision she had once maintained as a matter of course. Layla used her journalistic contacts to arrange a seemingly innocuous interview with Dr. Chen about women in defense technology, a pretext for making initial contact. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, as they were finalizing details, the secure communications system chimed with an incoming message. Khalid moved to the console, checked the encryption, and put it on speaker. "Falcon secure," he said. "Phoenix secure," came a woman's voice, steady, professional, with a slight Midwestern accent. "Perimeter surveillance confirms increased activity at the target location. Security protocols being upgraded. Timeline may be accelerated." "Copy that, Phoenix," Khalid replied. "Any change to access points?" "Negative on physical access changes. Digital security enhanced, new authentication protocols being implemented within 48 hours. Understood. Maintain observation and report any changes immediately." "Will do." "Phoenix out." Khalid turned to the others. "That was Maya, our medic. She's been monitoring Apex headquarters. Reynolds is tightening security earlier than we anticipated." "He's nervous," Amira said thoughtfully. "Good. That means he's not as confident as he's pretending to be." "It also means we need to move quickly," Khalid cautioned. If they complete the security upgrades before we can get to the servers, then we adjust, Amira said simply. We always do, she turned to Layla. Your meeting with Dr. Chen is tomorrow. That becomes our priority now. Everything hinges on gaining her cooperation. I'm ready, Layla assured her. But what if she refuses to help? She won't, Amira said with quiet certainty. People like Sarah Chen don't design weapon systems because they want to enable war crimes. They do it because they believe in protecting lives. Once she understands what Reynolds really intends and sees the evidence we already have, she'll make the right choice. And if you're wrong, Layla pressed, then we go to our contingency plan, Khalid interjected. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. As night fell over the mountains, Amira stepped outside the cabin for a moment of solitude. The air was crisp, the stars brilliant in the clear sky. She performed her Aisha prayers, the familiar ritual centering her as it had through countless missions, countless moments of danger and doubt. When she finished, she remained kneeling for a few minutes longer, her face turned toward the heavens. She had never expected to return to this life, had thought that chapter closed forever. Yet here she was, preparing once more to stand against those who abused power, who sacrificed innocence for profit. The cabin door opened softly behind her, and she knew without turning that it was Khalid. 15 years, he said quietly, coming to stand beside her. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes it feels like several lifetimes ago, she replied, rising to her feet. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two veterans of a secret war who had seen and done things most people couldn't imagine. Are you sure about this, Amira? Khalid finally asked. We could disappear instead. Take Layla, go somewhere Reynolds would never find us. Amira shook her head. He would never stop looking, and the Aura 7 would still exist, would still be used in ways that violate everything we once fought for. No, this ends now. She turned to face him, the moonlight illuminating the strength and determination in her features. Reynolds betrayed us, betrayed his oath, betrayed innocent people who trusted him. For 15 years, he's built an empire on that betrayal, on the blood of our teammates, on the suffering of those villagers in Kandahar. Her voice remained steady, but intensity radiated from every word. I made a promise, Khalid, not just to our fallen comrades, but to myself, that someday the truth would come to light, that someday justice would be done. Khalid nodded, understanding completely. Then we finish this. Together. Together, she agreed, as it always should have been. Inside the cabin, Layla watched them through the window. Two ghosts reunited, standing against the night, preparing to face an enemy who thought them long defeated. In that moment, she understood something profound about her aunt, about Mirage that transcended the remarkable skills, the impossible shots, the legend. It wasn't talent that made Amira Hasan special, it was resolve. The quiet, unshakable determination to do what was right, no matter the personal cost. To stand for justice when all official channels failed. To be the last line of defense for those who had no one else to protect them. As the two veterans came back inside, Layla made her own silent promise that whatever happened in the coming days, the world would finally know the truth about Mirage, about Black Crescent, about Alex Reynolds, and the empire he had built on betrayal. The pieces were in motion. The ghosts had emerged from the shadows, and Reynolds' carefully constructed world was about to collapse around him. He just didn't know it yet. Chapter 6, Mirage. The day of the Aura 7 demonstration dawned clear and bright. Apex Technologies' Virginia Proving Grounds had been transformed into a technological showcase. Corporate banners fluttered in the breeze. Military officials, defense contractors, and media representatives gathered in viewing areas overlooking the shooting range. At the center of it all stood a sleek, drone-like platform mounted with what appeared to be a next-generation sniper system, the Aura 7, gleaming in the morning sun like a vision of the future. Alex Reynolds moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, accepting congratulations on his innovation. In his tailored suit and designer sunglasses, he radiated confidence and success. Nothing about his smooth demeanor suggested a man with blood on his hands, with secrets buried deep. 10 minutes to demonstration, an assistant informed him. Reynolds nodded, scanning the crowd. And our special guest just arrived. She's at the registration area now. A cold smile touched Reynolds' lips. Perfect. Make sure she's escorted to the VIP section. I want her front and center when we make history." At the entrance to the facility, Amira Hasan signed the visitor log with steady hands. She wore a deep blue hijab and modest clothing that nevertheless allowed freedom of movement. Her niece Layla stood beside her, press credentials prominently displayed. "Are you ready for this?" Layla whispered. Amira's expression remained impassive, but her eyes held a quiet determination. "I've been ready for 15 years. As they were escorted to the VIP section, Amira's gaze swept the facility, noting security positions, camera placements, exit routes, a professional assessment made instinctively, habitually. Reynolds approached as they were seated, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Miss Hasan, so glad you could join us for this historic occasion." "I wouldn't have missed it," Amira replied evenly. "I hope there are no hard feelings about our previous encounter." Reynolds gestured expansively. "Today is about progress, about the future of defense technology." "Indeed," Amira said. "The truth has a way of emerging, doesn't it?" Something flickered in Reynolds' eyes, uncertainty, perhaps even a momentary flash of fear, before his corporate mask reasserted itself. "Enjoy the demonstration. I think you'll find it enlightening." As he walked away, Layla leaned close to her aunt. "Doctor?" "Chen is in position." "Khalid?" "In place," Amira confirmed softly. "Now we wait." The demonstration began with a corporate video about Apex Technologies' vision for the future, a world where advanced systems protected innocent lives with unprecedented precision. Reynolds took the stage afterward, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "For too long, we've relied on human operators for our most critical defense operations," he declared. "Humans with limitations, with emotions, with the potential for error or disobedience." His gaze flicked briefly toward Amira. "Today we transcend those limitations." He gestured toward the Amira 7 platform. "This revolutionary system combines advanced AI with precision engineering to create the perfect soldier, one that follows orders exactly, that never falters, that never questions." As Reynolds continued his presentation, Layla's phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Server access complete. Package secured. Transmitting now." She glanced at Amira, giving an almost imperceptible nod. "Phase 1 complete. And now," Reynolds was saying, "to demonstrate Aura 7's capabilities, we've prepared a series of challenges that would test even the most skilled human marksman." The crowd's attention turned to the shooting range, where targets at various distances began to deploy, some stationary, others moving in complex patterns. "Aura 7 will engage these targets autonomously," Reynolds explained. "Its advanced systems calculating wind speed, humidity, temperature, and a dozen other variables in real time." The demonstration was impressive, the AI system acquiring and neutralizing targets with mechanical precision. The military observers nodded appreciatively. Defense contractors exchanged excited whispers about potential applications. "Perfect shots every time," Reynolds declared. "No hesitation, no fatigue, no moral qualms." He turned toward Amira, his smile sharpening. "In fact, we've prepared a special demonstration, a recreation of an impossible shot that has become something of a legend in certain circles. A shot that required ricocheting a bullet off multiple surfaces to reach a target behind cover." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "This wasn't on the official program?" "Miss Hasan," Reynolds called out, "would you care to observe from a closer position? Given your interest in marksmanship." It was a challenge, delivered with the confidence of a man who believed victory was already his. Amira rose calmly and moved to the indicated position. "The parameters have been programmed," Reynolds continued. "Aura 7 will now demonstrate that what was once considered impossible, achievable only by some mythical ghost sniper, is now simply a matter of mathematics and engineering." As the system oriented itself, calculating its approach, Amira's phone vibrated in her pocket. She checked it discreetly, a message from Khalid. "All in position. On your signal." The Aura 7 fired. Its bullet traced a seemingly impossible path, ricocheting precisely off 3 separate surfaces before striking the target dead center. The crowd erupted in applause. Reynolds looked directly at Amira, triumph in his eyes. "The age of human snipers is over," he declared. "The era of Aura 7 has begun." Amira met his gaze steadily. "Impressive," she said, her voice carrying in the momentary quiet. "But there's something your machine will never understand." "And what's that?" Reynolds asked condescendingly. "The difference between a target and a person," Amira replied. "The weight of taking a life. The responsibility to question orders that cross moral boundaries." Reynolds' expression hardened. "Sentimentality, exactly the weakness Aura 7 eliminates." "Is it weakness to refuse to slaughter innocent civilians?" Amira asked, her voice still calm but carrying to every corner of the gathering. "Is it weakness to report war crimes rather than cover them up?" A hush fell over the crowd. This wasn't the polite exchange they had expected. "I don't know what you're talking about," Reynolds said dismissively, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. "Kandahar 2005, Amira said simply. The color drained from Reynolds' face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amira continued, turning to address the crowd, particularly the media representatives, "the technology you've witnessed today was built on a foundation of betrayal and blood money." Security personnel began moving toward her, but Reynolds waved them back, unwilling to create a scene. "These are serious allegations," he said, forcing a laugh. "Perhaps Miss Hasan would care to provide evidence rather than wild accusations." "I am glad you asked," Layla interjected, stepping forward with her press credentials visible, "because evidence is exactly what we have." On cue, the massive screens that had been displaying Apex promotional materials suddenly changed, showing documents, photographs, banking records. A comprehensive trail connecting Reynolds to the Kandahar incident, to the murder of his own team members, to mysterious initial funding for Apex Technologies. Reynolds stared in horror as his carefully buried past materialized before the assembled military officials, media, and potential clients. This is a hack," he sputtered. "Security, shut it down." But as his team scrambled to regain control of the systems, more screens changed, showing surveillance footage from inside Apex headquarters, dated just minutes earlier. Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking directly to the camera, detailing how Reynolds had modified Aura 7's protocols to eliminate ethical constraints, to enable targeting of civilian populations, to create a perfect tool for exactly the kind of black operations that had defined his military career. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, more concerned. Military officials were on their phones. Journalists were recording everything. Reynolds' face contorted with rage. "This is corporate espionage! Sabotage!" He turned to Amira, his composure finally cracking. "You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of." His hand moved inside his jacket, reaching for a concealed weapon. But before he could draw, a single shot rang out from somewhere in the distance. The bullet struck not Reynolds but the ground at his feet, a warning shot of impossible precision. Reynolds froze, his eyes wide with recognition. Only one person he had ever known could make such a shot. But Amira was standing right in front of him, empty-handed. "Mirage was never just one person," she said quietly, for his ears alone. "That was what you never understood. We were a team, a family, and families protect their own." As security personnel converged on the increasingly chaotic scene, military police appeared, not responding to Reynolds' calls, but arriving with warrants based on the evidence that had just been made public. Layla was already broadcasting live, her journalistic training taking over as she reported on the unfolding events. Other reporters followed suit, ensuring that what happened here would be witnessed by millions. In the confusion, Amira slipped away, moving toward a prearranged extraction point where Khalid waited with an unmarked vehicle. "Did you make the shot?" she asked as they pulled away from the facility. Khalid smiled. "That would be Maya, actually. Turns out 15 years as a Minnesota hunting guide keeps your skills sharp." Amira laughed softly, the first genuine laugh in longer than she could remember. "The team comes through." "Always," Khalid replied, his eyes on the road ahead. "Where to now?" Amira looked out the window at the Virginia countryside passing by, at the world that had moved on without her for 15 years while she lived in the shadows. "Home," she said simply. To Layla. "Two-piece." "You think Reynolds will go down for this?" Khalid asked. "The evidence is irrefutable. The witnesses are credible. His empire is already crumbling." Amira closed her eyes briefly. "Justice has been a long time coming, but it has finally arrived." As they drove away, news alerts began flooding their phones. Apex Technologies stock in free fall. Military contracts suspended pending investigation. Reynolds taken into custody. "What will you do now?" Khalid asked after a while. "After 15 years of waiting, of planning, what comes next?" Amira considered the question. The weight she had carried for so long, the responsibility of being the keeper of a truth no one wanted to hear, was lifting. The ghosts of Kandahar, of her fallen teammates, could finally rest. "I don't know," she admitted. "For so long this mission has defined me, been my purpose." She looked at her old partner, her friend who had watched over her from the shadows all these years. "But I think I'd like to teach. Share what I know with those who might need it." "You'd be an excellent teacher," Khalid said. "Your grandfather would be proud." Amira smiled at the mention of the man who had first placed a rifle in her small hands, who had taught her that a weapon was a responsibility, not a right. "And you?" she asked. "What will you do?" Khalid considered for a moment. "I've been a ghost for 15 years. Maybe it's time to remember what it means to be human again." As they drove toward the setting sun, Amira Hasan, the woman who had once been Mirage, the most lethal sniper in modern military history, felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Not just for justice now achieved, but for a future that, for the first time in decades, was truly her own to shape. The ghost could finally rest. The woman could finally live. And somewhere in the mountains behind them, the legend would remain. The quiet Muslim woman who had been mocked and underestimated, only to reveal herself as the deadliest precision instrument America had ever created. Not just a sniper, a mirage, a ghost story that happened to be true.